Turlough O Carolan is the most famous Irish harpist and composer ever to have lived. I can say that unequivocally. He was born in County Meath in 1670, which places him squarely in the Baroque period, even though the term Baroque is not one which we usually think of when we think of Irish music. It's Irish folk music, traditional music, which springs much more easily to mind. In his late teens, smallpox blinded Carolan, and so, as was common in those times, he was given a harp and apprenticed to a harper to learn to play. After 3 years of study, he was given a guide and a horse and some money by the woman who had effectively been his patron while he learnt. Her name was Mrs. McDermott Rowe. Carolan was then able to make his way in the world and build a professional career as an itinerant harper. He travelled widely, winning friends, if you like, and patrons on all sides: Irish, English, Catholic, Protestant. He found a wife along the way, Mary Maguire. They somehow managed to have a family of 6 daughters and 1 son, even though Carolan must have been away from home most of the time. Carolan's music combines several different influences. Of course, as an Irish harper, his training was very much in the old Gaelic oral tradition of folk melody and harp playing. A lot of his music is cheerful and lively and in dance rhythms. But something we don't so often consider is that he was also interested in music of the Italian Baroque, which was, at the time, the height of fashion in Dublin. People couldn't get enough of the Italian jigger. Italian violin playing had a huge influence on traditional Irish fiddle playing. Carolan was influenced by his contemporaries on the continent, composers such as Corelli, Gemignani and Vivaldi. He incorporated Italian forms into his music using sequences and imitations. He would sometimes add a quick jig to the end of a longer piece, as Corelli would also often do. And there's another influence in Carolan's music. As Andrew Lawrence King explains, in the mid-17th century, French music was all the rage. To put it in context, this would have been the music Carolan's father was listening to, or Carolan himself as a child and teenager. French music, the music of Lully, and French dance, those dances that Lully wrote his music for, travelled all over Europe and were widely imitated. And if you scratch the surface of Carolan's music, underneath what is obviously Gaelic Irish music with its gapped scales and very particular harmonies, the forms of the music and the rhythms of the music are actually French dances. There are lots of minuets, there are also French jigs. The ornamentation of the French Baroque was also a big influence. Carolan wrote instrumental music and songs for his patrons, airs, jigs, and planksties. Carolan probably invented the term planksty. It was the name he would give to a tune that was composed in someone's honour, like a tribute. In honour of a patron, for instance, Planksty O'Donnell or Planksty Connor. These pieces were lively and robust in a jig rhythm and in a popular style. We know that Carolan's music was full of irregular phrase lengths, unusual dissonances, and very distinctive bass lines. Now that might come as a bit of a surprise because we usually associate his music with much more four-square traditional Irish music. Most of what we know as Carolan's music was only committed to paper at the start of the 19th century. Before that, it was communicated from musician to musician orally. They would play it for each other. And irregular rhythms and dissonances are less appealing to the ear, so some of these subtleties were smoothed out by that oral tradition. Irregular rhythms are also much harder to dance to, and so they would have been squared off into more robust dance rhythms.